All right, absolutely shambolic stuff the other day from Real Madrid, guys. This is an end of an era, and I give us a 0% chance of coming back in the second leg. There is no way, if you watch that game, you're telling me that Real Madrid is going to come back. This game felt very similar to the game against Manchester City 2 seasons ago at the Etihad, where we got absolutely dominated. No solutions, terrible performances from Vinicius, from Mbappe, particularly from Vinicius. I'm going to get into all of that in this video. Very frustrating. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe and stay up to date with all the latest information about Real Madrid, because I'm sure we're going to have a new manager soon, because ain't no way we're winning this Clasico in the Copa del Rey. I'm just predicting that for the rest of the season, we are not headed in the right direction, and I don't see us winning any kind of major trophy this season. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about in this video is the lack of pressing from Vinicius and Mbappe. We played with a 4-4-2 formation out of possession. Very predictable, same formation we played against Manchester City in the first leg of the Etihad. But what is frustrating to me is to watch Vinicius and Mbappe absolutely no effort, not even attempt to press the ball. You could tell that Carlo Ancelotti instructed both of them to try and put more pressure on Thomas Partey, to not give him that time to receive the ball, turn, and feed it to Declan Rice, to feed it to Martin Odegaard, to cut off the supply from Thomas Partey. And he wanted both of them, one of them to be either pressing one of the center backs who had the ball, the other one just try to be a physical presence on Thomas Partey. But when you see both of these guys just straight up walking, and they're not even attempting to press the ball whatsoever, you can see that these guys are not managed by the right coach, because the right coach is not going to accept that kind of behavior. One of those guys is coming off the pitch. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Vinicius or if you're Mbappe. Think about last season, how much more balance there was in this team. Think about how we were out of possession, how strong we were defensively. We went to the Etihad and conceded 1 goal in 120 minutes. And yesterday we were at the Emirates, conceded 3 goals. Absolutely got dominated and destroyed. But if you look at the team, the first half, they worked a lot harder off the ball. But what we're seeing this season is around that 60th minute mark, roughly around that period, is where it tends to all fall apart. Even if we start off the game in the right direction, we seem to always fall apart. And there was an interesting stat that came out that Arsenal ran 13 more kilometers than Real Madrid. Explain to me how that happens. You cannot leave the Emirates down by more than 2 goals, and yet you're getting outrun, you're getting outworked, they're doing more running off the ball. Maybe part of the reason for that is you have a guy that's 40 years old in midfield who can't really run anymore. At what point did you say to yourself, okay, let me concede maybe 2-3 goals before I take off Luka Modric? I mean, the fact that a 39-year-old is starting for Real Madrid in a Champions League match away from home blows my mind. We're talking about one of the greatest midfielders of all time, right? There's no question Luka Modric is one of the greatest midfielders of all time. But you're telling me away from home, in the biggest game of this season so far, you're starting Luka Modric, 39 years old, in midfield? You can't find an alternative solution? Here's an idea, right? Why not play Brahim Diaz? I know what you're thinking. I'm not saying Brahim Diaz needs to be playing in the double pivot. No, what I'm suggesting is why not play Jude Bellingham alongside Camavinga with Brahim Diaz and Rodrigo? Those 4 guys form your midfield. Brahim Diaz was absolutely instrumental in that first leg against Atletico Madrid. We all know Brahim Diaz is a great player, especially in high-pressure moments. The game against Leipzig, the game against Atletico Madrid, he was key in both the matches. Has he had some of the best performances recently? No, he doesn't seem to be in the best form right now. But I would much rather that than 39-year-old Luka Modric away from home in a game where you know you're going to have a team that presses you very hard. You're going to need to track runners behind you. But what Carlo Ancelotti wanted was experience over anything. And that's why David Alaba started. And David Alaba was absolutely getting destroyed. And I just thought to myself, at what point does Carlo Ancelotti say, this David Alaba thing is not working out? Obviously, he fouled Saka for that first goal. Absolutely terrible. He was going nowhere. There was no point of fouling him there. Absolute stupidity. Talk about experience. Is that what you call experience? David Alaba, who won the Champions League at Bayern Munich and Real Madrid. We're talking about a guy who burst into the scene at a very young age, making a very silly, stupid foul in a place, in a location where feasibly they could have scored with either Saka or Declan Rice. And another thing I want to talk about is in the warm-ups, this was all over Twitter, that Declan Rice was hitting these top bins ahead of the game in the warm-ups. And yet nobody from the Real Madrid staff said to themselves, hey, look, Declan Rice is hitting these in the warm-up. Let's keep an eye on him. And then Mikel Arteta's set-piece coach was seen saying to Declan Rice, around the wall. He was telling him, go around the wall. What's going on here? Why is nobody reacting to that? Nobody from the Real Madrid bench is telling the wall to either shift or add an extra player to that wall. It's clear what he's telling Declan Rice. He's saying shoot the ball around their wall because he could see that huge gap. Truly unacceptable. The Champions League is won with the finest of margins. You know what loses you Champions League titles? Is negligence like this. It's not paying attention to those fine details. And that's why you conceded that first goal. And then the second goal, same thing. Bukayo Saka gets fouled in a very bad spot. You can't find another solution except to foul him in a place like that after you just conceded another free kick? Absolute stupidity. Both of those goals could have been avoided. But you're talking about absolutely shambolic defending. But again, you can only expect this kind of stuff under Carlo Ancelotti's side. Another thing I want to talk about is the set pieces. Arsenal, without a question, if they have this many corners in the second leg, they will score a corner. Guaranteed. Because in the first half, they had one that was going to go into the goal, but Saliba accidentally blocks it. But if Saliba wasn't there, it was going in. It was going to be 1-0 in the first half. Whether that would have been better for us to sort of fix up and be better in the second half, potentially. But even though we trained and practiced and prepared ourselves for those set pieces, there was no answers. Even the fact that Thibaut Courtois was in there was no answers. The only positive I'm thinking about is Tchouaméni will be back for the second leg. But like I said, Real Madrid is not coming back from this game. It is absolutely over. Another thing I want to talk about is the poor finishing from Kylian Mbappé. Obviously, he had that chance in the first half, which a guy of his quality needs to do better with that. We've seen this too many times with Kylian Mbappé this season. Missing chances that he should not be missing. Kylian Mbappé this season has been scoring goals that have been absolutely ridiculous from outside of the box and all these crazy chances, these low XG chances. But the high XG chances that he should be converting, he's not scoring. Again, if you're not going to be pressing Kylian Mbappé, we at least expect you to score those goals. I already touched on how poor Vinicius was in this game. Overall, Vinicius was by far our worst player, without a shadow of a doubt in this game. Camavinga in the first half was our best player. Obviously, didn't have the best second half, Camavinga. It all fell apart because Carlo Ancelotti doesn't have a plan. This game was lost in the midfield. Real Madrid was overrun by Arsenal's midfield because not only were they better prepared, but from a balance perspective, when you look at this Arsenal team, they're simply a better constructed squad than Real Madrid. We have the better players. I would pick these Real Madrid players over the Arsenal players. I'm not saying Arsenal has a better team, but I'm saying from a balance perspective, this is not FIFA. This is football in real life. This Real Madrid team was very poorly constructed. And now we have the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold who's going to join our squad, Dean Huijsen, a little bit of a different profile to this team. But what I will say is, as much as Carlo Ancelotti doesn't have tactics and he's not the man to take this club forward going into the future, a lot of blame needs to go to the board. Because even when you lost Carvajal and you lost Eder Militao, 2 ACL injuries, you didn't bring in anybody in the winter transfer window. Because if you signed a fullback or you brought in somebody temporarily, even for a few months, you could have moved Fede into the midfield and you'd have more options playing at right back. But you're forced to play Fede at right back and you lose him and then you get overrun in the midfield. So absolute negligence from the board at Real Madrid. Disgraceful all around. Real Madrid is an institution that's known for excellence. But the way it's looking now, this is some of the worst football I've seen from Real Madrid since the days of Fabio Capello. To me, when I see some of these guys not running, not pressing, not putting in an effort, I just say to myself, is the problem because they don't have that much respect for Carlo Ancelotti anymore? Do they need a new voice, somebody to hold them more accountable? Because what we saw was not acceptable from Real Madrid. That's all I got for this one. Make sure you guys subscribe. All I know is there needs to be somebody new at the helm of this club next season. Thank you for watching. Hala Madrid.